So now that we have covered the template essentials, I want to dive into building out our first child feature module. And then we're going to start introducing some components. And this will be made up of some smart container components, followed by some dumb components. So in this chapter, we're dedicating our time to learning and understanding the flow of creating a base level component, which we will end up using for routing purposes as we continue through the course. And we'll also understand the places where to get our data and how to pass the data off to our components for consumption. There are two ways that we could go about creating a module. The first is by hand. So we could go up into our source files. We could create a new file manually and rename things. However, the idea behind this course is to use the Angular CLI. So what we're going to do is use the CLI to generate our new module, and then we'll talk through what it's doing for us. Now for this, I'm going to leave our console running, and then we'll simply bring up a second terminal. So we've got two running at the same time. One is running our Angular project and watching all those live reload and compilations, and the other we'll use to run some commands. What I want to talk about first is this package.json. And if we jump in, we have things such as ng, ngserve, ngbuild, and there are many other commands that we can use with the CLI. Now, one of the most common ones is to use this G or generate. So when we use ng space generate, we can actually use ng space G. So this is just simply shorthand, so we don't have to type out the word generate each time. However, if we were to type out the word generate, we could then generate a component, for example. Now we're actually going to see an error if we hit enter. You can see that we have command not found. So what we can in fact do is turn to something called npx. Now this is built into Node and npm itself. So where we would do something like npm install, this is the way that we can use the Node package manager to install our project. However, I want you to think about the Node package, and then we're going to use X for execute. So we want to execute a particular command. So what we can in fact do is npx and then space ng. And now if I hit enter, it's actually recognized those commands. So we're now using our local Angular CLI project. So using npx allows us to use the Angular CLI without installing it globally, which is really nice for different versions. And it helps speed up our development. And seeing as we don't use these commands too frequently, and most of the time will be inside of our project files, building out our code base, it makes sense to adopt this approach using npx. So what we're essentially going to do is create a new feature module using npx. So we're going to say Angular, and we're going to use generate. You can use G if you'd like, and we're going to create a module. Now each of these commands takes different arguments. So we need to now pass in the name of the module. So this is going to be admin. And we also have the ability to add this module to another module. So before we commit to this change, what we're going to essentially do is create a new module. And by specifying a module that we want to add it to, much like our browser module has been added in here, the Angular CLI will also do the same when we create our own module. So we can say --module equals, and then app.module. If we then go and hit enter, you can then see that we have this admin module that's been created, and down on line number 9, inside of our import, our admin module has been declared. So this is a really great way that we can use the Angular CLI to speed up our development, because otherwise we'd have to go into our admin folder, create this admin file, and we'd have to set up all this manually. So by using the Angular CLI, we can simply generate a few different boilerplate pieces and it wires them up for us, which definitely across the lifespan of a project saves us a tremendous amount of time. So before we go any further, let's recap what a module is, because we haven't really dived too deep on what we're actually doing here. As I mentioned at the beginning of the course, we like to keep this app module completely free, and I like to treat it as our entry point to our application. So I try and keep it as minimal as possible and just simply import other modules. So in our sense, we're going to be building an admin module, which is going to allow us to manage our product. So instead of coding all of these in the app and things getting messy, and then we're going to add another feature, we're going to put all of our logic inside this admin folder and then simply import it. Which is a great thing, because let's say we want to use this admin module in another project, we can just simply take the whole folder, and with one import, we can then import it into another application. So this is the idea behind a modular architecture. So then we're going to understand how to tie in our component architecture. But before we do that, let's recap our module. So to declare a module, we create a class of admin module. You can call this whatever you like. This then gets exported and then imported by our app module and then simply declared. So this will then tell Angular that we want to use this particular module in our application, and it then makes all the components and logic that we declare in our admin module available throughout our app. So to then do this, we need to declare the fact that it is an ng module. We could, of course, just leave it completely empty. However, it wouldn't have any logic attached to it. So what we essentially want to do is declare any components that we want to use. We can import something called a common module, which I'll come onto in a moment. So any features that we want to use throughout Angular, such as the router, we would then import the router into this module. And this will make more sense as we continue. I don't want to overload too much information to you now. This common module comes with Angular, and it ships with a lot of the features. So any of these directives that we're going to learn about throughout this course, they're all going to exist in this common module. If we were to remove the common module entirely, we wouldn't have access to some of those Angular features. So the rule here is if we want to use a feature, we'll import that Angular module, such as the common module. We might also import the router module, and then we simply declare that we want to use it. That makes it available for us to use. That is pretty much it. We have created a new admin module. Our code is still running in the background. In Node, we've talked a little bit about NPX and how we can use the Angular CLI to then generate some of our application modules. And also we can specify a target for when it's created, it gets instantly bound to our app module. So this makes things nice and easy. We've then broken down the idea of creating these feature modules so that we can move them about in different applications with ease. And next we're going to start diving into some real component architecture. But now we've got the good foundations, we're ready to go.